Struggle has a way of making us question ourselves. When life gets heavy, when our prayers seem unanswered, when everything feels like it's falling apart, the first thought that often comes is, what's wrong with me? But struggle isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's often the clearest sign that something is growing, just as a seed breaks before it sprouts. Your struggle is not your destruction, it's your transformation in progress. The pain you feel is not proof of weakness, but evidence that you're being stretched beyond what you once thought possible. Growth never happens in comfort. Comfort keeps you where you are. Struggle pushes you toward who you're meant to become. Every difficulty you face is an invitation from Allah to expand your capacity for patience, for faith, for compassion. When you hit walls, when things don't go according to plan, it's not that you're failing, it's that you're being refined. Allah never wastes a hardship. He uses it to strip away illusions, strengthen your heart, and remind you where true dependence belongs. The Prophet faced rejection, loss, and loneliness. Yet none of those struggles defined him as weak. They revealed his strength, his resilience, and his trust in Allah. In your own way, you're being invited into that same divine process. Your tears, your exhaustion, your perseverance in silence, all of it is shaping a deeper version of you. Allah allows the pressure not to break you, but to awaken the dormant parts of your faith that only difficulty can reach. When you lift weights, your muscles tear slightly before they rebuild stronger. The same happens spiritually. Every emotional strain, every setback, every test of patience. These are the weights of your soul. The resistance you face isn't punishment, it's divine conditioning. You're being trained to endure, to rise, to trust, and to surrender in ways you couldn't before. Growth hurts because it demands letting go of what can't stay with you in the next stage of your life. We often pray for strength, but strength doesn't come as a gift, it comes through struggle. Allah doesn't simply hand you resilience, He gives you situations that require it. He doesn't just give you patience, He allows moments that test it. Each hardship becomes a classroom of faith, teaching you what ease never could. The lesson is not in escaping the difficulty, but in discovering the version of yourself that can walk through it with dignity and belief. Sometimes you'll look around and wonder why others seem to have it easier. But remember, growth is deeply personal. The mountain you're climbing was chosen for you. What Allah is building in you through your hardship might be something He couldn't build in anyone else. Comparison blinds you to the sacredness of your struggle. Your journey may be harder, but it's also holier because it's designed to draw you closer to Him. There's a quiet beauty in realizing that struggle doesn't mean you're far from Allah. It might mean you're being pulled closer. The friction, the tension, the waiting, it's all evidence that you're in motion. The stillness of stagnation feels safe, but it's the discomfort of growth that leads to depth. Allah molds you not through what's easy, but through what demands perseverance, humility, and faith. And when you begin to see struggle not as a flaw, but as a form of divine love, everything changes. You start to breathe through the pain differently. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is Allah teaching me through this? Because growth is not the absence of struggle, it's the sacred transformation that happens within it. Every story of triumph begins with a season of descent. Before every rise there is a fall. Before every victory, a valley. This is the divine rhythm of growth. No one climbs straight to the mountaintop without first walking through the shadows below. The valley is where perspective is formed, where humility is planted, and where faith is proven. It's the place that teaches you what the mountain cannot. That success without surrender is empty, and that elevation without endurance is shallow. The valley humbles you so the victory doesn't destroy you. When you find yourself in a valley, everything feels quieter, slower, and heavier. The things that once made sense suddenly don't. Your prayers feel like whispers lost in the air. But it's in that stillness that Allah is doing His most delicate work. The valley is not punishment, it's preparation. Allah hides you in obscurity to grow your roots before revealing your fruit. He teaches you patience in the dark so that when the light returns, your heart can handle it without arrogance. Prophets walked through valleys long before they stood on mountains. Prophet Yusuf was thrown into a well before he entered the palace. Prophet Musa fled into the desert before he stood before Pharaoh. Even the Prophet Muhammad endured years of rejection before the dawn of victory in Mecca. Their valleys were not detours, they were divine prerequisites. Each hardship carved the strength and clarity needed to carry the weight of their mission. The same pattern continues with you. The valley is a mirror that shows you who you are when comfort is stripped away. It exposes what you truly depend on. When you have no applause, no validation, and no clear path forward, you learn that faith must become your compass. In the valley, belief stops being an idea and becomes your only source of direction. You learn to walk not by sight but by trust, one uncertain step at a time. There's something sacred about walking through difficulty while still choosing gratitude. The valley tests not only your endurance, but also your attitude. Do you complain about the distance, or do you trust the destination? Every sigh of patience, every tear of surrender, every moment of restraint adds a layer of strength you'll need for the height ahead. The valley gives you depth, and depth is what makes your eventual rise sustainable. When you're in the valley, it's easy to envy those who appear to be on the mountain, but what you don't see are their valleys that came before. No one stands tall without first learning how to bow. No one enjoys the view without first surviving the climb. The process you're in is not evidence of failure, it's proof of divine craftsmanship. Allah doesn't rush the journey because He's building something within you that elevation alone could never teach. In the valley, you learn to appreciate the small signs of progress. A prayer answered softly, a peace that doesn't make sense, a glimmer of hope after long nights of doubt. These are reminders that Allah has not forgotten you. The valley teaches you to find joy, not only in outcomes, but in the quiet companionship of the one guiding you through. It's where you realize that victory is not just a destination, it's a transformation that happens long before you arrive. And by the time you reach your mountain, you'll carry with you the wisdom that only the valley could give. You'll see that every setback, every loss, every lonely night was not wasted. The valley was never meant to hold you. It was meant to prepare you, to shape you, and to strengthen the faith that would one day carry you to your victory. Pain speaks a language that comfort never can. It whispers truths that ease often hides. When everything is going smoothly, we rarely stop to reflect. But when pain enters, it demands our attention. It slows us down, quiets the noise, and forces us to look inward. Pain becomes the divine conversation between your soul and its creator. A language through which Allah awakens what had fallen asleep inside you. It's not cruelty, it's communication. Through pain, He says, come back to me. Transformation never happens in the absence of discomfort. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve before becoming a butterfly, the self must go through breaking before it can emerge renewed. Pain is that dissolving process. It melts away arrogance, false attachments, and illusions of control. It reveals how fragile our hearts are and how desperately we need Allah. Without that shattering, we would remain trapped in the illusion of self-sufficiency. Pain is not the end of you. It's the end of who you were not meant to be. Every ache has purpose, even if it's hidden beneath layers of confusion and grief. When you lose something you thought you couldn't live without, it's not because Allah wants to hurt you. It's because He wants to free you. The things you cling to too tightly often become barriers between you and your growth. Pain pries open your hands so you can receive something better, something eternal, something real. What feels like loss is often divine redirection. When Allah loves someone, He refines them, not through ease, but through struggle. The fire that burns the gold also purifies it. The same heat that hurts you is the one that removes what doesn't belong. Pain strips away everything that dilutes your sincerity until what's left is faith in its purest form. The very moments that make you question your strength are the ones shaping your strength. Every tear, every heartbreak, every test becomes part of your spiritual rebirth. Pain also teaches empathy. It softens the heart and broadens your capacity to understand others. Before pain, it's easy to judge. After pain, you begin to see with compassion. The people who have been broken the most often love the deepest because they know what it's like to hurt in silence. Pain humanizes you, reconnects you to humility, and reminds you that you too are in need of mercy, both giving and receiving it. When you allow pain to teach instead of harden you, it becomes sacred. It no longer feels like punishment but purification. You begin to see how every heartbreak carried hidden mercy, how every delay was a protection, how every disappointment drew you closer to the one who never disappoints. Pain shifts your focus from the world to the eternal, from the temporary to the timeless. It redefines what matters and reawakens your soul to what lasts. There are moments when pain feels unbearable, when you can't see beyond the tears. But that's often where transformation begins, in the place where your strength ends and surrender starts, when you say, I can't, and Allah responds, I can. Pain humbles you to the point of submission, and in that surrender, a new version of you is born, wiser, softer, stronger, and more aligned with truth. And as you look back, you start to recognize that every painful chapter was written with precision. The nights you thought would never end were the ones that taught you endurance. The prayers you cried through were the ones that taught you connection. Pain wasn't your enemy, it was your teacher, the divine language of transformation that guided you back to wholeness. Faith shines brightest in the dark. When everything is clear, when the path is smooth and the outcome is visible, faith feels effortless. But real faith begins where certainty ends. It's easy to trust Allah when the blessings are obvious, but true belief is revealed when the answers are delayed, when doors stay closed, and when silence becomes your only companion. Faith isn't proven by how loudly you praise in comfort, but by how quietly you persevere in confusion. The test of belief is not in knowing what comes next, but in trusting who holds what comes next. Uncertainty is not the absence of God's presence. It's often the stage where his presence becomes most personal. It's in the fog of doubt that you learn how to walk by trust, not by sight. Allah hides the full picture, not to confuse you, but to teach you to depend on him step by step. If he showed you every outcome, your reliance would shift from faith to foresight. Uncertainty is mercy in disguise. It keeps your heart anchored in remembrance and your soul awake in humility. When Prophet Ibrahim stood before the fire, he didn't know how Allah would save him. Only that he would, when Prophet Musa stood before the sea, he didn't see the path until it opened. When Prophet Muhammad hid in the cave, he didn't see the angels, but he knew Allah was near. Faith is built in those moments when logic fails, but trust remains. It's the courage to believe, even when the evidence hasn't arrived yet. Uncertainty is where faith graduates from words to reality. It strips away the illusion of control and exposes what your heart truly believes. When the plan unravels, when people walk away, when life doesn't match your expectations, that's when faith speaks. It whispers Allah knows. It reminds you that belief isn't a feeling, it's a decision. One you renew with every unanswered prayer, every sleepless night, every moment you choose trust over fear. There's a sacred beauty in not knowing yet still walking forward. The unknown teaches surrender, and surrender births serenity. You begin to see that faith isn't about predicting outcomes, but about finding peace in Allah's wisdom. Regardless of the outcome, uncertainty becomes a training ground where your soul learns that safety is not in clarity, but in closeness to the one who guides through darkness. Faith also deepens through delay. When things take longer than you hoped, it's not because Allah has forgotten you, it's because he's fortifying your heart. Delays develop depth. They refine your intentions and teach you endurance. The waiting room of faith can feel like silence, but it's actually full of divine activity. What you can't see yet is already being prepared behind the veil of the unseen. When you hold on through uncertainty, your relationship with Allah transforms. He stops being just the God you believe in and becomes the one you believe with. You stop needing signs to feel secure and start finding security in his presence alone. That's when faith becomes intimate, not something you talk about, but something you breathe. Every trial becomes a conversation, every doubt a doorway to deeper trust. And when the storm finally clears, you realize that the uncertainty wasn't a detour, it was the path itself. It taught you that real faith doesn't wait for comfort, it stands firm in confusion, it doesn't rely on what it can see. It rests in who it knows. Faith is not proven when life is easy. It's proven when everything inside you trembles, yet you still whisper, I trust you, Allah. Storms come to expose what calm seasons conceal. When life is peaceful, it's easy to believe you're strong, centered, and faithful. But when the winds rise and everything begins to shake, you discover what your heart truly clings to. The storm doesn't create weakness. It reveals it. It unmasks the illusions we build around security, showing us what's temporary and what's eternal. In the chaos, you learn whether your anchor is the world or the one who commands it. The storm isn't against you. It's working for you, stripping away false foundations so your soul can rest on truth. When the waves crash and the familiar begins to fall apart, you realize how much of your peace depended on control. The job, the relationship, the plan. They felt like stability until the storm touched them. Then suddenly you see that stability never came from those things. It always came from Allah. The storm reveals how fragile worldly anchors are, how easily they drift away when tested. And in that realization, you're given the chance to re-anchor your heart in what never moves. Faith that hasn't been tested remains unproven. Storms are the divine examination of the heart. They ask quietly, where is your trust when everything shakes? It's easy to praise Allah when the sun shines. It's harder when you can't see through the rain. Yet it's in that rain that faith grows roots. The more the winds rage, the deeper your anchor must go. Every gust, every crash, every wave calls you back to the one who steadies what no one else can. The Prophet Muhammad faced storms that tested his patience, his hope, and his heart. He lost loved ones, faced betrayal, endured rejection. Yet his anchor never shifted. His peace didn't depend on outcomes, but on his relationship with Allah. The storm around him only made that anchor stronger. The same principle applies to you. Every hardship is a divine invitation to check where your hope truly lies. Is it in results, people, or control? Or is it in the unshakable promise of your Creator? Storms are not just moments of breaking, they are moments of revelation. They separate attachment from faith, habit from sincerity. When Allah sends a storm, He's not trying to drown you. He's trying to deepen you. The storm teaches surrender, the kind that isn't passive but peaceful. You stop fighting what's beyond you and start holding on to the one above you. You stop begging for calm seas and start praying for stronger anchors. Sometimes the storm's greatest lesson is in the waiting. You pray for it to end, but Allah lets it linger. Because endurance builds depth. The longer you hold on, the more you learn that peace isn't found in the absence of storms, but in the presence of steadfast trust. The heart that stays anchored in remembrance doesn't panic when the world shakes. It knows the waves can roar, but they cannot uproot faith. As you walk through your own storm, notice what it's revealing. The pain, the loss, the confusion, they're all pointing to what your soul needs to release. Every storm comes with a mirror, showing you not who you pretend to be, but who you truly are. It reminds you that resilience isn't about resisting the wind, but about knowing where to anchor when it blows. And when the storm finally passes, you'll look back and realize it didn't come to destroy you. It came to define you. The winds that once terrified you became the very force that anchored you deeper in faith. The storm revealed that your peace was never in the calm. It was in the connection. It showed that your anchor was never in the boat. It was always in Allah. We live in a world that worships speed, fast results, instant answers, immediate success. But divine timing doesn't follow human impatience. When Allah delays something, it's never because He's forgotten you. It's because He's preparing you. Delay is not denial, it's development. Allah uses waiting as a tool to stretch your faith, refine your character, and align your heart with what's truly best for you. What you think is stagnation is actually spiritual construction happening beneath the surface. Every moment of waiting is part of His unseen design to shape what you're becoming. When Allah withholds something you deeply desire, it's not cruelty, It's mercy disguised as pause. He knows that giving you a blessing before you're ready could become a burden, so he slows the process to build the strength you'll need to carry what you've been asking for. The delay is not working against you, it's working for you. It's building emotional discipline, deepening gratitude, and strengthening your connection with him. If he gave everything the moment you asked, your faith would remain shallow, dependent on outcomes instead of trust. Look at nature. Every tree needs seasons before bearing fruit. The roots grow in silence long before branches touch the sky. Your waiting season works the same way. The silence of delay is where your spiritual roots take hold. It's where your patience, humility, and endurance grow strong enough to support the weight of your purpose. You may not see progress, but unseen growth is still growth. Allah never wastes the seasons he ordains. Delays expose what's in your heart. They reveal whether you're seeking the gift or the giver. When your prayer takes longer to be answered, your intentions are tested. Do you still worship when the wait stretches long? Do you still trust when clarity fades? In those moments, Allah is teaching you that faith is not a transaction. It's a relationship. The wait deepens that relationship in ways that immediate answers never could. The prophets all lived through divine delays. Prophet Yusuf waited years in a prison before the palace. Prophet Musa wandered for decades before leading his people home. Even the Prophet Muhammad endured years of struggle before victory arrived. Their delays were not detours. They were the paths themselves. Each moment of waiting prepared them for what was coming. Allah's plan always moves at the speed of your readiness, not your desire. When you begin to see waiting as development, frustration turns into faith. You start to trust that every not yet from Allah carries a hidden I'm preparing you. The delay becomes sacred, a season to polish your heart and purify your dependence. You stop seeing time as lost and start seeing it as invested in your growth, your clarity, your alignment with divine wisdom. The longer the wait, the greater the maturity it produces. There's beauty in realizing that Allah delays to protect you. What you call late, He calls right on time. Many times, what you think you're ready for would have destroyed your peace if it came too soon. Allah loves you too much to let blessings arrive before your foundation can hold them. The delay becomes His way of safeguarding both the gift and the receiver. What you lose in timing, you gain in depth. And when the delay finally ends, you look back and see why it had to take that long. You realize that if the prayer was answered earlier, you wouldn't have been the person who could handle it. Allah was not making you wait. He was making you capable. The development that happened in the delay was the real answer all along, shaping you into someone who no longer just waits for blessings, but becomes one. Healing doesn't begin when the pain stops. It begins when you stop fighting the pain. The more you resist what Allah has written, the longer you stay stuck in the wound. We often think healing means control, but real healing starts with surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It's giving in to divine wisdom. It's saying, I don't understand this, but I trust you. The heart begins to mend, not when life becomes easier, but when you stop demanding that it must go your way. Healing flows through acceptance, not through resistance. When you resist, you cling to what's gone and argue with what is. You replay the hurt, question the timing, and hold on to people and outcomes that Allah has already removed. Resistance keeps you in the past, but surrender allows you to step into the present, where Allah still resides. You cannot receive what's next while your hands are tightly gripping what's no longer meant for you. Surrender is the act of opening those hands, of saying, if you took it, it wasn't mine. If you left it, it's enough. Healing isn't forgetting what happened, it's reframing it. Through surrender, you begin to see that the loss, the heartbreak, or the disappointment wasn't a punishment. It was a passage. Allah allows pain to enter, not to destroy you, but to redirect you. Every tear is a messenger, every ache a teacher. The moment you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what am I meant to learn? Is the moment healing begins to take root. Surrender doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms your relationship with it. You stop viewing pain as an enemy and start seeing it as a tool. You stop trying to fix everything and start allowing Allah to do the fixing. Healing requires humility, the kind that admits, I can't do this on my own. It's in that humility that divine help enters, resistance keeps the wound open, surrender invites Allah's mercy to close it gently in His timing, in His way. There's peace in letting go of the illusion of control. You realize that healing isn't about moving faster, it's about moving truthfully. Some wounds are not meant to disappear instantly. They are meant to deepen your empathy, soften your heart, and make you gentler with others. When you surrender to Allah's wisdom, you begin to understand that even the ache has purpose. It's shaping you into someone more sincere, more aware, more real. Every prophet experienced deep pain, but none resisted Allah's plan. Prophet Ayub endured years of illness and loss, yet his heart never turned bitter. Prophet Yaqub lost his son and cried until his eyes turned white, yet his faith never broke. Their healing came not from changing their situation, but from surrendering to Allah's decree. Their pain was transformed into purity because they trusted that what Allah withholds is just as merciful as what He gives. Surrender doesn't mean silence, it means peace within the conversation. You can still cry, still question, still grieve, but you do so while holding on to Allah's hand. You begin to understand that healing is not about escaping emotion, but about embracing it in remembrance. Every sigh becomes dhikr. Every tear becomes prayer. Through surrender, your heart no longer fights Allah's will. It flows with it, like a river returning to the sea. And somewhere in that flow, the pain starts to soften. You realize you no longer need closure from people or outcomes because Allah became your closure. What once broke you becomes the very thing that brought you closer to Him. Healing was never about finding an explanation. It was about finding your way back to surrender. You're not broken, you're being built. What feels like destruction is often divine construction in disguise. Allah sometimes has to dismantle what you thought was strong to show you what true strength really is. The shattered pieces you see are not evidence of your failure, but proof that He is reshaping you into something new. Every heartbreak, every loss, every disappointment is a brick in the foundation of who you are becoming. You are not falling apart. You are being rebuilt, refined, and redefined through the hands of the one who knows your design better than you ever could. When Allah wants to elevate you, He doesn't just add more blessings. He often removes what limits you. Sometimes He takes away the very thing you thought you needed to survive. You might feel empty, but that emptiness is space being cleared for something purer to enter. The breaking is not punishment, it's preparation. Just as a seed must crack open before it grows, your soul must sometimes be broken open before it blossoms. That pain you feel is the sound of your soul expanding into the version Allah intended from the very beginning. We often call seasons of loss setbacks, but in reality, they are setups for deeper growth. When Allah breaks your plans, it's only because He's protecting your purpose. The things that crumble around you are often things that couldn't hold the weight of who you're becoming. Being broken isn't the end. It's the sacred beginning of something more authentic. It's the moment Allah starts removing everything artificial and false until only the truth of your heart remains. Pain is a divine sculptor. It chisels away the pride, the illusions, the attachments that keep you from depending fully on Allah. Every heartbreak strips you of something unnecessary. Ego, fear, control, until what's left is sincerity. Allah breaks us, not to leave us shattered, but to rebuild us with stronger faith, deeper wisdom, and clearer purpose. When you stop viewing the breaking as a curse, you start to see it as a sacred act of creation. The process hurts, but the product is priceless. What you call brokenness, Allah calls becoming. The trials you face are not meant to define you, but to refine you. They carve the path towards strength that doesn't need validation, peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, and faith that doesn't shake under pressure. Every crack in your heart lets the light in, the light of understanding, compassion, and closeness to Allah. What once felt like an ending becomes the very soil where your next chapter begins to grow. Sometimes Allah has to let you reach rock bottom so that you finally realize He is the rock beneath it. The place you thought was your lowest moment becomes the foundation of your highest transformation. In that darkness, you discover the light that was never external to begin with. It was inside you all along, waiting to be uncovered. You're not broken beyond repair, you're being rebuilt beyond recognition. Allah is not done with you, He's redesigning you. The beauty of being broken is that it humbles you enough to depend on Allah alone. It makes you soft enough to feel, honest enough to pray, and real enough to change. The people who emerge from pain with faith intact carry a depth that comfort could never produce. They love more deeply, forgive more easily, and live with greater purpose. Their scars become signs of survival, sacred reminders that Allah's mercy held them, even when everything else fell apart. One day you'll look back and realize that what broke you was actually building you. The pieces that once hurt to hold are now the very parts that make you whole. The story you thought ended in ruins becomes the blueprint of your resurrection. You're not broken. You're under divine reconstruction. And every moment of breaking is Allah quietly saying, I'm making something beautiful out of you.